Welcome back to the Lifeguard Show. My name is Ryan, and today we are with Sean Hardwick. Sean, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. So you have a few kids. Mm-hmm. How many kids do you have?
I have 11.
11?
Yes.
Okay, so a little bit more than the average in the United States, which...
I would say so.
I don't know what that is right now, but I think it's, 1.5 or maybe they're up to 2. I don't know what that number is. We can look that up. But so you've got 11. And how long have you been married?
Been married for right at 29 years. Next month will be 29 years.
29 years. Yep. Okay, so been married for almost 3 decades. You've got 11 kids. Are any of the kids married?
Yes. Hunter's married. Peyton's married now. She got married a few weeks ago.
Yay.
Noah's married. Isaac's married. And Anna. So 5 out of the 11. I have to actually count to figure that out.
5 out of the 11 are married.
Yes. Yep.
And what's the age range? Give us like oldest to youngest right now.
So my oldest is 28.
Okay.
And he has 3 kids. So I'm a granddad.
Okay.
And then the youngest is 9. And she is our baby girl.
Okay. 28 to 9.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about parenting.
Okay.
I've been married for 20 years officially.
Yep.
I have 4 kids.
Yes.
And parenting is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's very challenging. In fact, we had a very challenging day with one of our kids that will remain nameless this past week. But I'd love to hear from you. Mm-hmm. You know, you have 11 kids. You have age ranges, very significant. You've gone through them leaving the house, getting married, having their own kids.
Yes.
I'd love to hear what are some tips, what are some advice you can give on parenting, on, maybe even firstborns, whatever you want to talk about. I'd love to hear what advice could you give to future dads or current dads?
Sure. I would say probably one of the most important things that I would say is I would give any advice, and I just did a parenting series, would be it has nothing to do with parenting. And I know we'll talk about that in a few minutes with marriage, but the most important thing that I could convey to any set of parents is to make sure that you pursue your relationship with your spouse. That is, outside of your relationship with the Lord, that is the most important relationship in your house. You need to have date nights. You need to spend time with each other. You need to sit on the couch in the afternoon. We've done this series before with in our past where they emphasize couch time. So I come home from work and we normally are overwhelmed with kids and we kind of turn all of our attention there. But the most important relationship is with your spouse, whether it be your wife or your husband. And so because if you're not unified in that relationship and you're not growing that relationship, there's going to be an easy point of division when it comes to parenting. You're not going to be on the same page. If you're already not on the same page in your relationship with your spouse, it's going to be hard for you to be on the same page with how you parent an easy kid. So I would say that's one of the greatest exhortations that I could give any set of parents is to not lose your passion for one another. And related to that, if you look at statistics on divorce in the world and particularly even in the church, a lot of people get divorced in that 20 to 30 year range in their marriage.
Really?
And what happens is your relationship has basically been built around your kids and you become roommates. And so when the kids are gone, what happens? You're living with someone that you don't know anymore. And so that's why I'm like, the people in my parenting class that we just did, I sound like a beating a drum because I just think it's that important. It's the key to what not only your kids see how your relationship is with each other, but you pray that, as a dad, that you would love your wife in a way that your daughters want to marry someone like you, in a way that your sons want to emulate that and how they treat their wives. So it's generational in so many ways.
That's good. So just to reiterate, you say marriage should be elevated over the kids.
Absolutely.
Your wife should be elevated over the kids.
Absolutely. Obviously, the most important relationship in your life should be the one that you have with the Lord. He's the one that changes us, makes us into new creations. the primary relationship in your home is obviously with your wife. It's with your spouse. Thinking about wives listening to this, and because you have to have that relationship, has to be the most important in your home that your children see, and then your relationship with each one of your kids has to be something that you pursue. So as you pursue your wife or your spouse, you also need to pursue relationship with your kids, and that is a huge thing in parenting.
All right, so Sean, tell me about a marriage tip. Give me some sort of marriage tip.
I was thinking, just in thinking about this, I think this is a life tip.
Okay.
Most of our problems that we have in our marriages and that we have in our parenting come from failed expectations. Any relationship, whether it be spoken or unspoken. Like, I expect that you're going to do this, and when that doesn't happen, I get upset. I get maybe that's a beginning, a cause of strife. And I think I just heard someone say this one day, and I'm like, man, that is just huge, because I think about some of the conflict that I've had over the years with it, whether it be with my kids or whether it be with my wife. It's like, well, I expect one thing, or I expect myself to do something that I fail, and it causes me to. And so I think, like, understanding that my wife is married to someone who wants to be like Jesus but who's not, or my kids, I want them to be like Jesus but they're not Jesus, that our expectations need to be clear. They need to be we need to communicate those well to one another, and I think it would help us in our relationships with our spouses, and it help us with our relationships with our children, because they understand we're all in the same field. Like, more often than not, someone fails to meet our expectations, and we just kind of shove it, and then we kind of hold a little. Okay, there's a mark against them.
Yeah,
there's a mark against them, and then all of a sudden, they get enough marks built up where you kind of like, the house of cards falls over, and they're like, man, where did all this come from?
Yeah. And
it's because we weren't clear with like how we were feeling, and the expectations that were not met. So I think that's a huge thing in marriage, and in particularly in children too.
Yeah. Can you give me an example? We talk about mistakes and we share mistakes, so whatever you're comfortable with, but can you give me an example of a mistake maybe that you had expectation wise with your wife?
Oh man, with my wife. Give me a minute on that.
Yeah, sure. Take your
time. I think a lot of times there have been times when I haven't communicated things as clearly as I needed to, because I was trying to avoid conflict. And so it inevitably creates conflict, because then it's like, well, I'm not trusting your reaction, or I'm not trusting how you're going to respond to something, because, whether it may be, I get in trouble with maybe not giving all the details, because there may be something that she's not happy about that detail or whatever. Not to say that I'm trying to hide things at all. I'm just saying it's like, I am conflict averse in so many ways. And
really?
So, yes.
I don't think I realized that.
Yes. I think probably more of a people pleaser than I need to be. And I always tell my kids, I'm like, it doesn't matter what people think of you if you realized how little they do. Like, we're going to walk right out the door and you're not going to think about Sean the rest of the day, but we worry so much about what people think about us.
That's true.
That sometimes we will not be clear about things that we need to be clear about. And there's failed expectations, because I want your expectations of me to be, to be something that they're not, and so, anyway, I think being clear has definitely been sources of conflict. I say, has caused moments of intense fellowship, as we like to say. Yeah.
Is that like fighting?
Yeah, it could be, if you want to put that word in there. That could be an adjective for it.
Yeah. I think fighting is healthy if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have to learn to be able to fight well without scarring or injuring the other person emotionally. I talk a lot about transparency. That's been something that's one of the top tips that I give for my marriage, and that we've, spent a lot of time over the years processing through and sharing and that sort of thing. Is there an example, like you were saying, sometimes maybe you don't give enough information? Is there like a quick story that you could share about that?
I would say there's been several times when we had functions at work where I was required to go do something, and I knew that my wife wouldn't be crazy about it. So I'm like, oh man, do I need to? Maybe I'll wait till like the day before and say, hey, I've got this tomorrow and I've got to go. And then she gets pretty upset about it because she's like, why didn't you tell me, when you
2
knew
weeks
last
ago
week?
or
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever. And it's because I'm like, man, I just don't want to go through this. I don't want to have this argument. I don't want to have this, And so it's like, whereas I should have just been transparent the week I knew about it, and then we can have all the discussions and talk about it, and just because I think sometimes waiting until that time, she's like, well, you just why didn't you go and tell me when you knew about it,
Yeah.
And so again, there's that
What do you say to that, by the way? When she says that, what do you say?
Just, well, I knew
Because
about
I
it.
didn't want to tell you.
Yeah, I know.
That's
That's the root of it.
I didn't want to tell you because I thought you might respond in a way that would not make me feel good.
Yeah. Or we might have a conflict over it, and I'm conflict averse. So I don't like the boat to be rocked too much.
So you'll go through a series of gymnastic maneuvers.
Yeah.
To try to keep peace.
And the thing about that is my grandfather used to say a half truth is still a whole lie. And so sometimes even when you may not be blatantly or lying about something, but if you're not sharing everything that it's still being deceitful in a way. So that's the things like, oh Lord, please just transparent. Help me to everything's out. And then, light shined on anything. There is no darkness, there's no way to be, because then, if you're like, I know this, if you're shading things, then it gives your spouse a reason to like, okay, so why is he not being truthful, or why is he not being transparent about this? And so where there really is, there's not, it's just more just like, I just don't want to have this conflict.
Right.
And, so that was definitely,
it sounds like you're even saying, it not only does it cause a problem because you didn't communicate clearly and timely and when you knew and fully transparent, but also it sows seeds of doubt.
Right.
On top of that, because
Absolutely.
now you didn't do that. So then it's the why.
Yeah, exactly.
Why were you withholding that? What else is happening? Or what else is going on?
That's right.
Yeah. So it stops all that. Just be upfront, do it gently.
Yep.
And put it out there. That's good. Hey, please subscribe to The Lifeguard Show. We'd love for you to be a part of our community, and make sure that you ring that bell so you can be notified of our next video release. And if you have any suggestions of content, please contact us through our website, thelifeguardshow.com, or you can leave us a comment in one of the videos on our YouTube channel.